Hello everybody, my name is Propane Canister, and today I will be talking to you about the orchestra. So I'm going to start this presentation with what is the orchestra? An orchestra, from the Greek orcheomai, meaning to dance, is a large musical group consisting of 5 major sections: the string section, the brass section, the wind section, the keyboard section, and the percussion section. These families all provide distinct sounds and effects that can be used to create truly incredible music. The orchestra you are about to learn about contains all 5 families and a total of 32 instruments. Your school may have an orchestra or a concert band. You can use this video as a sort of guide to some instruments you may encounter in your musical journey. Let us begin with, drum roll please, the string section. The string family consists of 8 instruments, 5 bowed strings and 4 plucked strings. They are divided this way on the use of a bow made of horsehair or the fingers to play notes. All of the instruments have strings made of various materials, but most often they are made of steel. String instruments can provide all sorts of sounds fundamental to the orchestra. From sharp, high notes to rich, low rumbles, the string section has it all. Over there on the left or the right is a list of all the instruments in the string section, and a guitar plectrum and a cello bow show the things used to play these instruments. I miscounted, there are actually only 3 plucked strings, so yeah. Our first instrument is the violin. You may notice I have not written a description for any of these instruments. It's because I'm just going to try and explain it with no description written for me, so. The violin is the smallest member of the string family, well, I guess the second smallest after the mandolin. But it is the smallest bowed string instrument and is played on the neck, with the little black neck rest at the bottom. You may notice it has 4 strings. They are tuned G, D, A, E in perfect fourths, or fifths. These strings are tightened or loosened by the use of the tuning pegs near the top. That changes the pitch of the string. Pressing down on the string in a certain spot on the neck will change the pitch because you are shortening the length of the string. You may also notice that there are 2 holes near the center of the body. Those are the sound holes. If there were none of those holes, no sound would be created. Those are called F holes. There are also different types of holes: round holes, C holes, and D holes. The violin provides sharp, resonant passages and can provide very nice, calming harmonies. Something I've always liked about the violin is its versatility. The way it can go from a sharp, nasally passage to a ethereal, serene, sort of, accompaniment for the rest of the instruments. And that's why I like the violin. Next up is the viola. The viola is sort of the middle child of the string family. The viola is tuned C, D, E, A, I'm pretty sure, and it is between the violin, which we saw earlier, and the, sorry about that. I thought I could go back, I could not. So let me try this. Okay, no. Yeah, so the viola is the only instrument in the orchestra notated in the alto clef, which I would have put a picture here, but I forgot to. The alto clef is between the treble and bass clef that you would see on a regular grand staff. The viola is used to play harmonies with the violin and cello, mainly. It provides backing for the rest of the bowed strings. The viola is also the brunt of many jokes in the orchestra. You may hear some if you decide to play this instrument. The viola, in my opinion, is quite an important instrument in the section, as it provides a vital backbone to the violin's harmony. And that is why I like the viola. Next up is the cello. The cello is the first instrument that you have to play sitting down. You have seen on the previous 2, they both had neck rests that you would use. The cello, contrary to my poorly cropped image, has 4 strings. They are tuned the same as the viola, but an octave down. The cello is much, much larger. You have to play it sitting down, and it creates some of the lower notes in the string family, and it is notated in the bass clef along with the next two instruments. Something I always liked about the cello is its ability to play background bass lines and melodies. Right. Next up is the viol. The viol is an instrument developed in the Renaissance, which has since made a minor comeback in some circles, and I like to include it as part of the string family. You may notice that the viol has 6 strings compared to the 4 we've seen so far. I do not remember what they are tuned to. You may also notice metal bars on the neck. Those are called frets. Pressing down on a fret will play an exact pitch, unlike the rest, which don't have frets and you have to decide by ear. You may also notice the fact that the viol has different shaped sound holes. The rest of the instruments have F holes. These have C holes. The viol is beautiful in its way, similar to the cello, to play both melodies and bass lines. It can play beautiful, emotive, melodic passages or soft, lyrical passages. It truly is an instrument that I believe should be brought back into the mainstream. Finally, our last bowed string instrument, the contrabass. We're back to standards here. This is tuned E, A, D, G, which is the same tuning as a bass guitar. This instrument provides solely low notes. It cannot really play melodies. It is so large that you not only have to play it sitting down, you also have to lean it back so it can be played comfortably. I like the contrabass because of its versatility and beautiful tone, but also its versatility. The contrabass can be played in basically any genre, with some mild exceptions, but it can be played many different ways, create many different noises, and be satisfying to many different ears. Now, on to the plucked strings, the harp. You may have seen a harp before. A harp is the instrument with the most strings. It has up to 47. It is tuned chromatically, and you can change the key based on what pedals you click. You can't see the pedals, they were rubbed out, but there are 7 pedals on the back that you can move to play sharp notes, natural notes, or flat notes. The harp is also a very large instrument. It's so large that you play it sitting down. Play it sitting down, and most commonly, lean it back as well, so you can actually play it properly. The thing I like about the harp is its beautiful harmony. The harp, much like the piano, can play both low passages and high passages, and it can play them at the same time. Its wonderful tone also provides a great way to present this. Harp strings are usually made out of nylon. They're not made out of steel. Next is the mandolin. The mandolin is a very small, fretted, plucked string instrument. It has 8 strings, or more accurately 4 courses, which is 4 pairs of strings. And you can see it is quite small if you have one of these. It is about the size of your chest. And that makes it quite difficult to play, just because of how small it is and how small the frets are. As you can see, as we get up towards the 24th fret, it's teeny tiny. The mandolin can play high melodies. It cannot really play low harmonies, but it is great for melodic passages, and it stands out among the other sounds in the orchestra. Finally, our final string instrument is the guitar. The guitar can be used for lyrical passages or intense chords, or just regular chord accompaniment. You may notice it has 6 strings. They are tuned E, A, D, G, B, E. Guitar is fretted, meaning that if you press down where the metal bars are, you will get a note, an exact pitch, much like the viol and mandolin are. I like the guitar for its beautiful tone. Its soft nylon strings beside a soft tone that can be used for many different contexts in an orchestral piece. Now that we are done with the string section, we will now move on to the brass section. The brass section is the first of the aerophones, which are instruments played using air. They are played using a mouthpiece, which you can see on the right, buzzed into to create the sound. The brass section is commonly used for loud, aggressive melodies or booming low parts. The brass section is divided into 2 subsections, high brass and low brass. There are 3 instruments in each section. The instruments are either made of raw brass or steel, hence the name. On the left, you can see a trombone mouthpiece and a trumpet, cornet, French horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, which are the instruments in the brass section. The trumpet. The trumpet is the highest brass instrument and the one that provides the most unique sound. The trumpet was traditionally used in marching bands to play loud fanfares. But nowadays, the trumpet will provide those aggressive loud fanfares and nice and soft melodies, if you can get it to do that. I will now make the noise that you need to make sound come out of a brass instrument. I do not play a brass instrument. I play percussion and strings, which is why my blow sounded kind of weird. But the trumpet is the highest. It can play those high melodies that I talked about earlier. The cornet is very similar to a trumpet. It's almost the exact same. But I included it because of its ability to provide nice, soft harmonies with the trumpet. It also has a little bit of a different tone. The cornet is larger and does make a different sound, but it makes the same timbre. Mostly all the brass instruments do, because it's just a buzz going through a tube. The way you play all brass instruments is by pressing down on the valves that you see there. You can press down on the valves, which bring down little rods that shorten or lengthen the tubing in the brass instrument. I like the cornet because it can provide those harmonies with the trumpets I talked with earlier. The French horn. The French horn, double horn, Vienna horn, or just horn, is one of the stranger instruments in the brass section. The French horn is played the same way I explained all the other ones, but it has 3 buttons and a trigger, which is played with the thumb. It is carved out in that picture, but it's there, I promise. The French horn is also played using your other hand. You can place your hand into the bell to create a sort of muted sound of the instrument. I like the French horn because of its ability to play beautiful chordal passages. In more lyrical sections of music, the French horn can be used to create beautiful sweeping melodies along with the strings. The trombone is the first of the low brass. You may notice something different about the trombone. It is not played with valves. It is played with a slide. There is such thing as a valve trombone, which gets rid of all the fun of the trombone, but that's just my opinion. The slide trombone is played using a slide, which visibly lengthens and shortens the tubing of the instrument. You move the slide up and down to decide which note you play. I like the trombone because of its ability to play bass lines and nice melodies. It's a very versatile instrument. After that is the euphonium. You may not know what a euphonium is. Imagine a tuba, but a little bit smaller. The euphonium can be used to play basically the same part that the tuba does. The euphonium can play loud, booming bass lines, or sometimes even aggressive melodies, which are already loud and booming themselves. The euphonium is definitely one of the more unique instruments. And the tuba. You probably know what the tuba is. The tuba is the largest instrument in the brass family, and it has the lowest pitch. It is very large, and that is why it has the most tubing, and that is why it plays the lowest notes. The tuba is used exclusively for bass lines. If you write a solo or a melody with the tuba, you are a madman. But yeah, air flows through the tuba, comes up the belt, and it makes a nice, low boom. Now, let's move on to the next section, and my second favorite section, the wind section. This is the wind section. The wind section is the largest section in the orchestra and consists of 7 instruments. Most of them are made of wood, except for the saxophone, which is always made of a kind of metal, most often steel or brass. The wind section is divided into 2 other sections, mouth-blown and reed instruments. They provide a large variety of sounds in the orchestra. On the right, you can see a clarinet reed and a bassoon reed. The bassoon and the oboe are both double reed instruments, meaning they have 2 different pieces of wood that rattle against each other to create that sound. Clarinets and saxophones have single reeds, which vibrate against the mouthpiece to create their notes. Piccolos, flutes, and recorders are all mouth-blown, meaning that you don't need a reed to play them. Our first instrument is the piccolo, which provides the highest notes in the orchestra. This and all the keyboard instruments. piccolo is essentially a flute, which you know what a flute is. You blow into the little mouthpiece on the end and press the keys to differentiate the notes. It is that, but smaller and louder. I like the piccolo for its ability to play loud melodies. Loud, very high, very noticeable melodies. That's why I like it. Next up is the flute. The flute serves sort of a similar job as the piccolo to play loud melodies, and you can also play very beautiful lyrical passages. It's also played in a very similar way as the piccolo. You blow into the mouthpiece there, you hold it on the side, and you press down on the keys to play different notes. The flute truly creates a beautiful tone when played correctly, and even when played incorrectly, it can create some beautiful bell tones. Next up is the recorder. This may be an instrument you did not expect to see in an orchestra. You may have played this instrument in elementary school. But don't be fooled. The recorder is just as dignified as the other instruments in the orchestra. You play the recorder by putting your thumb on the back and blowing into the top like a whistle. You then press down on the holes to differentiate the notes. I like the recorder for its ability to play strong melodies and beautiful chords. I also love its wide variety of tone among its different types. The oboe is the first double reed instrument. That means it has two reeds that vibrate against each other when you blow into it. In fact, when I got into middle school, I was going to join the band after I already filled out the form for the choir, and I was going to play the oboe. I did not do that. The oboe is a very unique instrument. It can play beautiful, soft melodies, but also very exotic sounding passages. In any song that has an Arabian melody, you've probably heard it played on an oboe. That is why I like the oboe. Next is the clarinet. This is the instrument Squidward Tentacles plays from SpongeBob. The clarinet is a single reed instrument, and it only uses one reed that vibrates against a mouthpiece. The clarinet can provide anywhere from high highs to low lows. It can do anything in the world. It is basically the entire wind section, this and the saxophones. I like the clarinet because of its versatility. As I told you, it can play high melodies and low chordal passages. The saxophone. The saxophone is probably the most recent instrument in the orchestra. This and the synthesizer. It was invented in the 1840s by a man named Adolphe Sax, and it is heavily based off the clarinet. It is a single reed instrument that is made of metal. You press the keys, and the air comes out of the bell and creates a sound. I like the saxophone for its versatility. It can play high melodies to harmonies to bass lines if you have a baritone saxophone. That is why I like. Pictured here is a tenor saxophone, which is sort of the middle of the saxophone family. It's a very unique tone, and it can be played in many different genres, such as rock, jazz, blues, classical, whatever you want, hip-hop even. The bassoon is the largest instrument in the wind family, and it is the second double reed instrument. The bassoon has a very wide range, going, I think, 4 octaves. It can play low bass lines and high melodies, and it truly is one of the most beautiful instruments in the section. Now for the keyboard section. The keyboard section contains the largest instruments in the orchestra. Each instrument is controlled by pressing keys, which cause hammers to hit strings, except for the organ and synthesizer. Each instrument is tuned chromatically, except for the synthesizer, which isn't really tuned. They are all played with the hands, and the organ can also be played with the feet. Pictured on the bottom is an image of a 2-octave keyboard and the instrument list. Let's begin. The piano. The piano is the first and most common instrument in the keyboard section. If an orchestra has a keyboard section, it might only have a piano. A piano uses hammers to hit steel metal strings. Keep that in mind, metal strings. The piano is most often used for chordal accompaniment, bass lines, or beautiful solo passages. You may also notice the 3 pedals on the bottom. There's a sustain pedal, an una corda pedal, and I think it's a staccato pedal. I don't know. And that is the piano. Very nice instrument. Next is the celesta. The celesta is played differently. It hits bells on the inside instead of strings. The celesta can provide soft harmonic passages and beautiful ethereal melodies. The celesta truly stands out in the orchestra as no other instrument really sounds like it. Next is the harpsichord. The harpsichord uses feathers to hit metal strings. That is why it sounds the way it does. The harpsichord can be used in a similar way as the piano to play nice, aggressive bass lines, or high, beautiful melodies, or just regular old chordal accompaniment. The harpsichord is the oldest instrument in the keyboard section. It was first developed in the 1400s. This was the predecessor to the piano. Bach, Vivaldi, all them people wrote music for harpsichord. Yeah. Next is the organ. The organ does not hit things. It releases air up to pipes, which play notes. You can see the two keyboards and multiple stops, but you can also see the foot pedals. You can press on those pedals with the feet to create notes. Very low notes. This instrument has the largest range of any instrument in the orchestra. It can play quite aggressive and very, sometimes fearing melodies that sound like a monster walking into your city. It can also play very, very high, very haunting melodies with its smaller pipes. That is the organ. Finally, the synthesizer, the newest and definitely most uncommon instrument in the orchestra. The synthesizer is made up of several modules which control different sounds and effects that the keyboard can produce. The modern synthesizer, was first developed in the 1960s by a man named Robert Moog. And what pictured here is one of his synthesizers. As you can see, the melodies have several plugs you can plug chords into. It has several knobs and buttons you can press, and it's all sorts of fun. And there's a keyboard below you can click. Click on to play notes. The synthesizer most often provides effects in a piece, but it can also provide melodies. Not very often, but it can. Next up, and finally, the percussion section. Oh, a lot of pictures. The percussion section consists of 3 subsections: auxiliary, mallets, and timpani. The auxiliary section is drums, cymbals, and all that other fun stuff that is changed between every piece. Mallet percussion is glockenspiels, xylophones, chimes, and things like that. They are instruments played by hitting bars with mallets. Timpani are kind of a mix of the two, which I will speak about later. Percussion instruments are not tuned. Pictured on this slide is a variety of mallets. You can see the wooden sticks used to play snare drum and tom drums. The large, soft mallets used to play the bass drum. Crash cymbals are played with your hands. The glockenspiel is played with hard rubber mallets, but I also put in yarn mallets, which are used to play the vibraphone and marimba. Timpani are played with soft felt mallets. They're pictured between the sticks and the yarn mallets. First up is the snare drum. The snare drum is you probably know this one. It plays rhythms. It is named the way it is because it has a set of metal wires on the bottom, which amplify the sound to create a sort of crispness. You can turn the snares off, which loosens them, and it sounds sort of like hitting an empty Tupperware container. With the lid still on. Yeah. The snare drum can play complex rhythms and many other different things. Next up is the tom drums. The tom drums are basically snare drums with no snare and no bottom. They are used often to play very aggressive, very in-your-face type of sounds. With these, I can make the sound with my mouth. But tom drums can also play unique rhythms using their different pitches. Now, the bass drum, the last drum. The bass drum is the largest drum and provides booming notes that provide a sort of intenseness to any song they are featured in. The bass drum is not used often, but when it is intense. Now, the crash cymbals. The crash cymbals are played with the hands, and one is held in one hand and one is held in the other, and they are smashed together to go psh. It is always an exhilarating moment in a piece when the crash cymbal player arcs his hands up to play his note, and he plays the single note in the piece, creating an exciting atmosphere to the entire orchestra. Now, the glockenspiel. This is the only mallet percussion instrument I have featured. It is played with hard rubber mallets or plastic mallets and features a set of keys made of metal and a pedal that dampens them. Oftentimes, glockenspiels are basically always used to play melodies. They play higher notes and have a very unique sound that helps them stand out. They are also known as the orchestral bells because of their bell-like quality. Now, finally, the timpani. The timpani, or kettle drums, are large metal drums played with mallets. These have their own section because they are tuned. They are tuned but are also drums, so it's kind of a mix of the two you saw before. You hit these with soft felt mallets, which create a very large, very booming sound. The timpani are also very, very large, and commonly 4 drums are needed to play properly. They are all separate, none of them are connected together, and modern timpani have a slider on the side that tells you what note you're tuning to so you don't have to tune by ear or, God forbid, with a tuner. Timpani can provide those large booming notes I described earlier on the bass drum, but also it can provide bass lines like a low brass, low reed, or low string instrument. I love the timpani for their versatility and how they play with the rest of the percussion section. So that was my detailed diatribe on the orchestra. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the